All right, let's talk about one of the most wild, most philosophically dense books in all of science fiction, God Emperor of Dune. The entire thing really hangs on this one absolutely mind-bending question about its main character, Leto II. So, could the biggest, baddest tyrant in the history of the universe also be its greatest savior? I mean, seriously. To even begin to wrap our heads around that, we've got to look at the future Leto saw. A future so awful, he'd do anything to stop it. So, before Leto became the God Emperor, he looked into the future using his family's special gift, prescience. And what he saw, well, it wasn't just bad, it was the end. Total, complete annihilation for humanity. And here's the really crazy part. The very thing that was supposed to keep everyone safe, seeing the future, it turned into a trap. See, everyone with power was using prescience. The Spacing Guild, the Bene Gesserit, they were all peeking at the future to avoid danger. But in doing that, they made humanity super predictable. It's like they were all walking down the same single path, a path that, no matter what, led straight off a cliff to total extinction. Okay, so you're Leto. You see with 100% certainty that your species is going extinct. What do? Well, he came up with a plan, a solution so insane, so extreme, it's hard to even fathom. He called it the Golden Path. And let's be super clear here. This was not just a guy on a power trip. The Golden Path was a meticulously crafted plan set to unfold over thousands of years. It was a cure, a really, really horrifying cure for what he saw as humanity's terminal illness. So, how'd it work? Let's break it down. Step 1, stagnation. He basically hits the pause button on the entire galaxy. No new tech, no social change, nothing. This, of course, builds up a ton of pressure. People are just desperate to be free. Step 3, he actually engineers a rebellion to take him down, which leads to the grand finale, the scattering, humanity just exploding out into the stars. Now, to pull this off, you can't just be a regular person. You die way too soon. So Leto did something nuts. He let these little creatures called sand trout latch onto him, and he started this centuries-long transformation into a giant human-sandworm hybrid. Yeah, this basically made him immortal, so he could see his plan all the way to the end. I want you to really think about that number. 3,500 years. Not 35, not 350. 3,500 years of one person ruling everything with an absolute iron fist. He was a god, and he was a monster at the exact same time. This kind of gives you the quick version of his reign, right? He starts the transformation, and by year 1000, his forced peace is totally locked down. Any rebellion gets crushed instantly. But then, way, way down the line, he starts setting up the endgame, and that involves bringing back his old buddy, Duncan Idaho, over and over again. The pressure cooker analogy is just perfect for this. Imagine humanity is the water inside. For 3,500 years, Leto is just turning up the heat, clamping the lid down tight. He's bottling up every ounce of humanity's desire to explore, to innovate, to be free. He knew that when that lid finally blew, it wouldn't just be a little steam. It would be an explosion so massive, so chaotic, that humanity would scatter to every corner of the universe, where no one could ever trap them again. But can you imagine the cost? I mean, really, Leto had to be the loneliest creature to ever exist. He's this giant worm god, totally cut off from everyone. The only thing he really did for himself was bring back his friend Duncan Idaho again and again as a clone, just to have someone who would argue with him, who would challenge him, someone to remind him of what it was like to be human. Okay, so fast forward 3,500 years. The pressure is at its absolute maximum. The universe is ready to blow. But for the plan to work, Leto has to do the one thing no dictator ever wants to do. He has to arrange his own downfall. Think about it. With his powers, Leto could see everything, every possible future, every single move anyone could possibly make against him. His control was basically perfect. Almost perfect, because Leto, the ultimate control freak, had spent centuries breeding the one thing he couldn't control, a blind spot in his vision, a person who was the key to unlocking a future that even he couldn't see. And that person was Siona Atreides, a distant descendant of his own family line. Because of her unique genetics, she was totally invisible to prescience. She was a walking, talking black hole in his future sight. And you have to understand, to Leto, she wasn't the enemy. She was the entire point of the whole thing. She was the freedom he'd been working towards for millennia. So now, with Siona on the board, the final act could finally play out. Leto's entire monstrous life, all 3,500 years of it, was leading up to this one single moment where he would finally lose. He knew a rebellion involving Siona was coming. He just couldn't see her in it, so he couldn't know the specifics. So what did he do? He poked it, prodded it, basically guided it right to his doorstep. And when the time came, he let Siona and the final Duncan Idaho take him down. You see, his death wasn't a failure. It was the victory lap. And this right here, this is the payoff. On one side, you've got humanity before Leto, stuck, predictable, and literally doomed. And on the other side, after his death, after the scattering, you've got humanity that is wild, diverse, unpredictable, and free. They're scattered so far and wide that nothing could ever threaten the whole species again. He did it. He made them safe. And his death wasn't just a political thing. It was a biological one, too. When he died, his worm body broke apart into millions of those sand trout. They burrowed back into the sands of Arrakis, and boom, new sandworms bigger than ever. And with the sandworms comes the spice. So his death literally kickstarts a whole new era for the universe. So when you boil it all down, that's what it was. 3,500 years of being a monster was a sacrifice. He paid an unthinkable price so that humanity could have a future without limits, a future where they could never, ever be caged again. Which brings us right back to where we started. Was he a hero or a villain? I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. He was a monster. He destroyed cultures, oppressed trillions of people, but he saved the entire human race from extinction. Forever. So, what do you think? Does the end justify means that are that horrific? And that's really the question God Emperor of Dune leaves you with. It's not just about Leto, it's about us. If you knew for a fact that the only path to survival for humanity was for you to become its greatest monster, could you do it? Would you? What price is too high to keep our species alive? That's a heavy one, and there's no easy answer.